Welcome to the Dive at Big Creek Baptist Church, where we dive a little bit deeper into doctrine and theology. I'm William Moore, the lead pastor of the church here at Big Creek, and we are talking today about a new series focusing on the fall. Now, when we talk about the fall, we don't just mean the season. That's not really what we're getting at. We don't just mean falling over, although those can be pictures of what we're talking about in some ways. When we talk about the fall, we're talking about the fall of man, meaning coming from a place where man was in perfect communion with God in the Garden of Eden, and then falling out of that communion or lowering out of that communion as a result of man's choice to be disobedient. So we're really talking about sin. We're going to talk about sin and what it is. We're going to talk about its results. We're going to talk about the mechanism that God has created for us to be forgiven from sin as well across our time together. So be sure to tune into this series. It's an important one. It's a tough one. It probably is one that'll not only be informative, but also will help you to kind of reflect on your own life, your relationship with God, and maybe some of the sin that you're struggling with. So tune in with us as we move through this together. But today, we're talking about, in this series, the fall, we're talking about sin as missing the mark. You know, when we use the word sin, essentially, in its original iteration in the Bible, both in the idea connected with transgression in the Old Testament and sin in the New Testament, ultimately what we're talking about is missing the mark. So if, for example, you think about it like you usually hear the analogy like a dartboard, and you throw a dart and it doesn't quite get to the place it's supposed to, which you hope is the middle. That's missing the mark. And so sin, as a matter of our behavior, is missing the mark of what God expects from us. And so we talk about sin as missing the mark. One aspect of sin is missing the mark of God's standard set for humanity, the way that God means for us to go. We miss going that way and we go a different way. This missing of the mark is not a simple mistake, but a falling short of God's glory through conscious choosing of sin. And that connects directly with a passage in James 4:17 that says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." And that has other implications beyond just the general idea of sin, but the heart of that verse is saying this, that if we know the way we're to go and we don't go that way, that's sin. And that not going that way is a conscious choice. You know, you hear sin talked about sometimes as a mistake or something maybe we didn't have control over, but that's not what sin is. Sin is a choice. We either choose to sin in the moment, as in we have an opportunity before us to do right or do wrong, and we consciously choose to do wrong, or sometimes we may wind up in a situation where we have a pattern or habit in our life we don't even really think about anymore, and yet that at one point was a conscious choice. And even sometimes in the moments, we still have that choice as we encounter this habit. And so sin is missing the mark of the way God means for us to live. And he tells us how to live through his word, his moral will in Scripture. It's us not living that way. It's us doing something else, whether it be a little bit off the path or way off the path. It's not on the mark God meant for us to be. And we consciously choose to do that. It can be sin that's culturally accepted or not culturally accepted. That's not really the point. It could be things that we've justified or not justified. That's not the point. The point is God has a standard, and we don't meet that standard because we choose not to willfully. We may refer to sin as a failure on the part of humans to live according to God's standards, but we must recognize the failure is intentional. It's a choice we make. We miss the mark when we deliberately choose to cast aside God's intention for us. And again, we cast aside God's intention sometimes by knowing his intention from his word and still not doing it, or we cast off his intention by never opening the word. And so we can say to ourselves, well, I don't know what God's intention is because I didn't open the Scripture. But because we have the Scripture available to us and we can know, we're still accountable for that because we choose not to know. We choose to cast it to the side. And that's what it means to miss the mark. And so as we continue on in this series, we'll talk more about other aspects of sin. Hopefully you have a kind of a comprehensive understanding of it through this series. Please make sure you check in each Tuesday as we post these podcasts. And I hope that you find them as a source of encouragement to you. And pass them on to someone else who may not know about these or would benefit from them. pass it along. If you've got topic suggestions or questions you have about this topic or others, you can reach out to me directly at wlawrencem@gmail.com. If you are a member of Big Creek, this is an intricate part of our discipleship process, so make sure not to miss out on these. They actually directly connect now with our Sunday school curriculum and some of what we do in our preaching on Sunday morning, so don't miss out on these. They're a great benefit to you and your spiritual growth. And I pray this is a source of encouragement. The series is a help to you. And until next time, we'll see you on the dive.